So I was inspired by this hike I took out to Antelope Island when I drew this sketch in my sketchbook using Goldfaber Aqua Watercolor pencils by Faber Castell. They're really great pencils for beginners, and they're fairly inexpensive too. I'll show you how I did this painting using these craft brushes and an inexpensive sketchbook. Being an artist is not my day job. It's just a fun hobby. So is hiking. And besides hiking, I really only did this basic sketch with a ballpoint pen. This approach to outlining the basic composition is similar to what you would get in a coloring book. It's not a bad way to practice. I get really inspired by the beauty of the world around me. And sketching is a great way to remember the experiences. And getting an image that inspires you is step one in making a nice landscape sketch or painting. So now that I have a good composition, I start off with the light blue pencil and fill in these mountains. And of course the sky. As it stands, those mountains look stacked on top of each other. Using different colors and choosing to make them lighter or darker should help them look like they're in front or behind each other. The darker purple will separate them from the sky, but also keep them in the distance because it's a cool color. Warm and cool colors is an important part of atmospheric perspective or making things look like they go into the distance. Cooler colors tend to recede and warmer colors tend to come forward. That's why I'm using this yellow ochre for the mountains closer to me, the one that I was standing on and the one in the middle ground. You saw that I blended the pencil with a wet brush, and while the paper was still wet, I put some brown pencil over it and it added some nice texture to the rocks. When the pencil goes on wet paper, it goes down darker. This is kind of the ugly stage of a painting. I'm simply trying to get the right color variations and big shapes before I start fussing around with details. That's why I'm adding some browns and greens to this yellow ochre. Don't get frustrated with this ugly phase. As you add more colors and details, the ugly, messy phase will disappear, and you will often love the results you get. So this island is on the Great Salt Lake in Utah. And it was a nice hike. The landscape is very dry and rocky though, but there are some beautiful views up here. It was worth the trip. Even though I'm not trying to render this like a photo, I am trying to make it look realistic. A realistic painting requires there be a lot of visual variety, and this stage is all about creating that variety with impressionistic marks of darks and light colors, and warm and cool colors, which is why I chose to use those darker purples and blues on the middle ground mountain. It might not make sense at first, but you will see that it helps push the mountain back a bit to help give the painting more depth. I'll add some of the local color of brown at the end of the painting, but hopefully you'll see the effect the cooler blues have in adding to the depth of the place. Plus, I think the pops of color give it an artsy look. Feel free to add your own personality to a painting. Adding more detail to the foreground also adds to the depth of the painting. I began doing that by adding shadows to those white rocks and adding the beginning stages of the green for the grass that was starting to grow. This extra contrast helps the foreground look like it's closer to the viewer in the painting. One of the reasons I like these pencils is that while they aren't considered professional grade, they have good color saturation, they blend well, and best of all, you can buy them open stock, which means you can buy individual colors, like my favorite color orange, which I throw into my paintings as often as I can. I think the orange adds personality to the painting, and since it's a warmer color, it adds to the color perspective of warm color versus cool colors. Plus, it's a nice contrast to the purple mountains. It's also worth mentioning that you don't always have to wet the pencil after you put it down. I didn't really blend the orange marks, and here I'm putting down some contrasting marks with brown to make those tall yellow grasses stand out. I'll leave these marks dry so they stay crisp. I think I like the overall look of this painting, and I'll finish up by adding some darks in the shadows of the mountains with a cool gray. And I'll punch up the darkest shadows with black. If you like this video, check out some of my other adventures in art, or even better, subscribe for future adventures. Thanks for exploring art with me. I hope you get out and discover something on your own.